I don't want to leave any doubt in terms of who wrote the letter and why was the letter written. I therefore take full responsibility.
No, that's exactly why you're here. Is it also evidence that you were not assisted at all with this letter?
Yes, in terms of contribution to the letter substance, it was me and Advocate Pikoli.
Okay.
And then...
Minister, all these things weighed heavily on your mind. All these factors, you say, they weighed heavily on your mind. All these factors, not just the two that's mentioned in your letter.
Yes, all these matters, they constitute the actual material things behind those two sentences that you see, or one sentence that you see in those two terms.
Okay, so you don't record that in the letter to say to the National Commissioner, you know, there's a host of issues that weigh heavily on my mind and that concern me. But in summary, I've concluded that the team is no longer needed because it's not adding any value to policing in South Africa. At least one leaves it open-ended for you to come back and say, okay, what were these things that weighed heavily in your mind? We don't get that impression from your letter. Now, we discussed the letter yesterday, and you spent quite a bit of time explaining yourself. So and you also accepted that you could have phrased the letter differently.
Not necessarily. You remember, you went a long way yesterday on the tone of the letter yourself, and you even suggested.
And you agreed that you may have.
Let me finish. You suggested a particular format to me, which was the same thing but in a different tone, and I said to you, well, you are putting that in the way you are putting. And then I said, Singakalisana, I could accept that that could have been a different tone, but it doesn't change anything in terms of the content of what I wanted to convey to the National Commissioner, except that the tone could have been softer. And but not that there's anything wrong with my letter legally and constitutionally, and in terms of what I wanted to convey.
And you say you accept full responsibility for this, what's in the letter and the directive that you issued. So you're a minister of state, and we expect you to be of sober mind.
Yes.
Especially over this period when you're Minister of Police, when there's lots of tragedy and killings and so on. So that's fair comment, and I don't think anybody suggests anything else.
Yes.
Maybe the tone would have been different had you had a couple. Yeah. So anyway, on a more serious note, is it also evidence that you were not assisted at all with this letter? There was no one else who did a draft, or did I recall you saying that your advisor may have assisted?
Yes, in terms of contribution to the letter substance, it was me and Advocate Pikoli.
Okay.
And then the Chief of Staff was merely conveying, not contributing in any manner on the wording and on any other aspect of the letter.
Okay.
It was just me and the special advisor.
Just you and mainly you and Advocate Pikoli.
Advocate Pikoli, yes.
Yeah. So when Lieutenant General Mkonazi tells us that Gabindi told him that I think he mentioned quite a few drafts were exchanged. He was waiting for the final draft. Would he have referred to the exchange of drafts between you and Advocate Pikoli?
Well, I don't know what General Mkonazi was talking about.
No, he was talking about what Nkabinde told him.
Yes, I don't know what they discussed, whether they discussed up to that. I did have a conversation with Chief of Staff in terms of the substance of what they discussed. And he gave me a different version, which I will go to later on. But what I do know is that they did speak.
So just to round off on the directive, at the time, had you sought or been given legal advice on whether you could issue this kind of directive?
At the time of right, or
at the time that you drafted and wrote this directive with the assistance of your special advisor?
I didn't go wider than the special advisor because he happens to be an advocate. To say, what is your first impression on this letter in terms of the Constitution and in terms of legislation? And he didn't doubt, he had no doubt that it is within the Constitution and it is within the legislative framework.
Because it's apparent from the letter that you, at the time when you drafted the letter and signed the letter, that is your signature there, is it?
My signature?
Yeah, there on at the end of the letter.
Definitely, it's my signature.
Good. So at that time you accepted that you need to provide some reasons to the National Commission as to why you're issuing this directive.
Yes, but let me just indicate something that will interest you and the other comment. I wrote the letter and as I wrote, and after completing the letter, I was envisaging a meeting, that is the letter where we would discuss, have a first discussion. That's why I put a date on the 20th to say, forward me with kind of an interim response, and then a fuller engagement at a later stage at UNESCO. I was firm and clear that we would need to discuss some aspects, but those things were somehow, or to a great extent, affected by what I will talk about later. But as I said yesterday, I didn't envisage my directive as a drill. I mean, in the context of a drill situation. I envisaged it in the context of what happens in a work situation when you are at work with the Director General, that you do engage, even on difficult matters. But I'm aware that it then brought in a difficult situation. But when in a work situation, a difficulty arises, that's where you get the best in terms of how the people you work with behave. That's where they get an opportunity to display even what is internal within them. Not when you have a normal situation at work. A lot of things get suppressed in terms of you knowing exactly the kind of people that you work with.
But the people you work with, and especially whom you give, if you're in a higher position of authority, the way they behave and the way they respond would often depend on the way you address them, isn't it? And the tone of any letter or instruction or directive, the way it's written.
Not necessarily. It doesn't. There's a difference between reasoning things out and the way you respond to a situation emotionally. There's a difference. I'm not talking about emotions. I'm talking about substantive reasoning when you have matters before you, how you react at that level of reasoning and rationalizing on things. And I am certain that I dealt more on the aspect of rationalizing things out with a view to bringing something that would change the way in which South African Police Service render services to the people of South Africa, towards improvement, towards realistically responding to the concerns that people raise throughout, including